So today's is a little bit longer than normal, I think. So I'll start with the update from the province. Late Friday afternoon, the province made an announcement that effective immediately, the province-wide emergency declaration, the one that came into effect April 8th, would be extended by an additional 2 weeks. So that brings it to a total of 6 weeks. With that came new enforcement measures and restrictions that will be implemented to help Ontario manage the third wave of COVID and to protect the health and safety of the community. So I'm going to go through a few of the changes, and then I'll talk about some changes from the changes because a lot has happened in a few short days. So originally effective Saturday, April 17th, the new restrictions would apply province-wide and would include the following. There would be outdoor gatherings, would be strictly limited to members of the same household or from one other person from outside the household who lives alone. The in-person shopping at stores that primarily sell food and pharmaceutical goods and grocery and big box stores were to be restricted to 25% occupancy, and only essential construction was able to continue. The last item was all outdoor recreational amenities were to be closed, and that included the basketball courts, soccer fields, playgrounds. But since then, the province made a change to allow that playgrounds can remain open. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the update. Also announced Friday was that effective Saturday, police officers were granted additional enforcement powers. And again, there were changes to that. So one day later, the provincial amendments to regulations were made to clarify that police officers and other provincial offense officers, like municipal bylaw officers, would not have as much enforcement authority as they had originally announced. So police will not stop vehicles or people unless they are suspected of participating in an organized public event or social gathering, and they won't ask why they are out or request their home address. Now, the police are saying through their media releases that they're going to continue to focus on the 4 E's, so engaging, explaining, educating, and then enforcing. So effective today at 12:01, there were some additional changes, restricting indoor participation at places of worship, funerals, and weddings to 10 people. And there were checkpoints created to restrict mobility at interprovincial borders between Quebec and Montreal, with some exceptions for work, transportation of goods, and medical appointments. Additionally, with this, as an accompaniment, the Ministry of Labour has increased the number of inspectors for workplaces to ensure that any employee that is not required to work outside of the home stays home. So we'll see some inspections or more inspections starting from the Ministry of Labour. From a vaccine program perspective, there was an announcement today that starting April 20th, the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine will be available for those age 40 and over at participating pharmacies. And you know, in Noddle, we have the 2 pharmacies that offer vaccines. The Simpsons and Niagara Stone Road Pharmacy was being added as well. So we're doing pretty well in Niagara overall. There's about 26% of the population that has been vaccinated, with 135,000 doses approximately that have been administered. So for the 80+ population, 95% of our residents have been vaccinated their first time. 92% of the 75 to 79 range have, and 79% of the 70 to 74 years of age have been vaccinated. There's also other vaccinations in other age categories, but I won't get into that right now. So the question then is, what's open and what's closed in Noddle? So as a result of the amended OREG 8220, as you know, the community center and arenas are currently closed, and parks or recreational areas are open for the purposes of permitting persons to walk through or use portions of the park or recreational areas. But the outdoor rec amenities are closed. So that would include any outdoor sports facilities and multi-use fields. So golf courses aren't able to be used, baseball diamonds, soccer fields, tennis, basketball courts, skate parks, and BMX parks can't be accessed at this time. Portions of parks that have outdoor fitness facilities can't be used, and picnic sites and picnic tables are not supposed to be used right now. If there's we don't have an off-leash dog park, but those areas are permissible, and benches in parks are permissible, provided you can get your 2 meters physical distance. So as I mentioned earlier, playgrounds, play structures, and equipment can be used by children, the caveat being that both the children and the parents have to maintain the physical distance of at least 2 meters from others. Now, I know there was a lot of confusion over the weekend about playgrounds, and I'll just explain it a little bit so people can hopefully understand why it occurred. There was the official announcement on Friday evening around 4 o'clock-ish, but then on Saturday at 3:15, the Premier sent out a tweet. And it was just the single tweet that said, our regulations will be amended to allow playgrounds, but gatherings outside will still be enforced. So because the tweet didn't identify when it would become effective and didn't identify any details, nor was it followed at that time with an official announcement or an update to the regulation. The town followed the regulation while waiting for that official announcement. We even got some materials through emails on Saturday evening with the regulations, which stipulated that you couldn't. So it was quite confusing. Some municipalities opted to follow the tweet, but historically, Niagara-on-the-Lake has been very cautious and really putting safety first. It's been our utmost priority. So we opted instead to wait the regulation and the formal announcement. As soon as that was made this morning through an update to the province's website, we sent our staff out to make that change. So I know that caused a lot of angst, and I'm sorry for that for the community members that wanted to use it and couldn't understand why we had made that decision, but hopefully that adds some clarity. Reminder that the public washrooms at Market Street, Penning, Queens Royal Park, Simcoe Park, and the Virgil Sports Park continue to be open 7 days a week from 8 till 8. NRT On Demand continues to operate, and the library is still offering curbside pickup. So, on to enforcement and traffic. So from a traffic perspective, I think we have good news. We saw another decrease in traffic this weekend over what we saw last weekend and over what we saw the weekend before. So the total incoming cars was 5,523. The weekend prior was just under 7,000. So that was about a 20% decrease from what we'd seen last weekend. And it's a 50% decrease from when I reported at the end of March. So that's positive that we're seeing less people come in. And so the measures are starting to work in that regard. From the Bell Media campaign that we have running, we have good data in terms of the quantity of cell devices entering Noddle and which geographic areas they're coming from. So we've seen a bit of a decrease there in terms of outside of Niagara region coming to our area. So of 63,000 devices that entered Noddle over the weekend, 72% were from Niagara region, 12% were from the GTA, and 6% from Hamilton. So we're seeing less people come from Hamilton to the area. In Old Town, those entering, there were approximately 23,000 coming into Old Town. 75% of those were from Niagara region, 11% from GTA, and 5% from Hamilton. And then the outlet mall, as should be the case, we had very few devices, so approximately 500 in total, and all were from Niagara region, probably store staff and people doing curbside pickup, but all were from Niagara. So I think that's positive. Let's talk a little bit about bylaw enforcement this past weekend though. So as you can imagine, with the quick changes the province made, there was some frustration in the community. Enforcement staff are understanding of this, and they're doing their very best to do the same as what the police said, which is engage, explain, educate, and enforce. Inquiries have really ramped up this month. So while we're only 19 days into April, it looks like it may be our busiest month since last spring. So far in April, we've had 214 inquiries related to COVID and perhaps non-compliance. We've had 48 inspections that were based on complaints, 118 opportunities for education, and then 3, enforcement, so issuing of tickets. This increase in activity is something that we often see when the province amends the OREGs. We've also seen some isolated issues with some short-term rental operators, but bylaw is addressing that as well, making sure that they're compliant with the regulations. So as you can imagine, very busy in parks this weekend. While out-of-town visitors were few based on our Bell Media data and our traffic data, social gatherings in parks was actually quite high. So efforts were focused in these areas. It was particularly concerning in Old Town. People who were social gathering would see the bylaw officers coming, split up, and run away. So I think people have an awareness, but they're not always following the regulations. So it's good that we have people out reminding. So I do want to take a moment right now to just give a great big shout out of thanks to the park staff and bylaw enforcement staff. They're really doing an amazing job responding and helping people to be safe. What you might not realize is just how tough a job this can be. Many people are frustrated now with the regulations and restrictions, and sometimes they direct that frustration at those folks that are trying to help and do their job. So if you can believe it, many people are swearing at them, yelling at them, and even spitting at them. So I really commend them for keeping their cool and doing their job to keep the community safe, even in light of those kinds of situations. And I'll just remind folks, like I usually do, that community members looking to report contraventions can always go to our COVID complaints at noddle.com. Okay, I always like to end on good news. So a couple announcements for today. The Noddle at Home Kids Dance Challenge for the spring break that we partnered with Public Library on was a great success. Had lots of people send in their dance moves. With the parents' help, of course, and the winner was announced on April 16th. So great thing for the kids to do over spring break when they can't get out too frequently. We started the STEP challenge, so advertisements were kicked off on Friday, and so that's the annual STEP challenge, which will take place in June, following all provincial and public health guidance, of course. So you'll see more details in the coming months. And I'll remind you of Earth Day for event. A quick reminder, because we were nominated as one of Canada's most beautiful and sustainable event destinations by the Sustainable Events Forum. So if you haven't already, please do register for the event. It's at noddle.com/Earth Day, and we can, and the information is at that link. And then hopefully you can vote for us for the free event on April 22nd. It would be lovely to win that award. We've kicked off another campaign starting today, and it's called the Shine Light, Spread Kindness campaign. It's a one-week initiative, and it's dedicated to promoting a culture of kindness in Niagara-on-the-Lake. There's so much going on with COVID-19, people trying to get vaccinated or get their loved ones vaccinated, the changing regulations and the stay-at-home orders, just to name a few. So many people are understandably feeling very frustrated, confused, sad, and frankly, it feels like the world is upside down sometimes. Many in our community are feeling completely and utterly burnt out. I feel very bad when I speak to members of the community, people who rely on getting exercise and socializing through tennis or getting their kids to the much needed playgrounds. People who want to just run their business. It's really tough, and it's hard to follow the restrictions in place. So this campaign is to help remind people to stay kind to one another, and that's really the impetus behind it. So we're inviting the community to commit to shining light and spreading kindness, to ignite light and joy in our community. And the town is asking business community and churches or other people who might have the digital signs and billboards to just display messages about being kind. For example, kindness matters, be kind always. And to take a picture and send it into kindnessmatters@noddle.com so we can post it. We've got so many great community members doing so many great things. So hopefully this helps to just encourage people to participate in it. We've got an event going on every day throughout the week, and we also have an event for kids that they can participate in. It's a bit of a kindness bingo, so hopefully people enjoy that. This is also Volunteer Week, so we want to highlight the many good and kind deeds happening in our community. As I said, Niagara-on-the-Lake is a community full of kind, thoughtful, compassionate, and generous people. So here's an opportunity for us to acknowledge them for shining their light for all to see. And so there's an online form on our website if you would like to nominate anyone. It will be announced and acknowledged on our town social media pages Friday, April 23rd.